Hey people! Welcome back! Today, we're diving into the bustling world of Meltoro's commercial district, where the Emperor and Sigil are deep in conversation. Sigil is expressing his concerns about Veronica's recent actions. He feels she's been imposing her will too much lately. The Emperor wonders if she's doing this to maintain her reputation. Sigil, however, dismisses this idea, stating that if he were concerned about appearances, he wouldn't have personally come for an inspection. The conversation takes a lighter turn as the Emperor teases Sigil about his age and how he's changed. He points out that in the past, Sigil would have handled Veronica's behavior himself. Sigil, however, brushes off these comments as absurd. As they continue their discussion, they touch upon the Red Tower Master's experience, and how Veronica seems to be regressing into childlike behavior over time. They agree that this is a problem, but then, the conversation shifts to a more pressing issue: Theodore Miller. The Emperor admits that he finds Theo intriguing. This student, who was recently failing, not only won the pupil tournament in a short span of time but also defeated an elder lich when he visited his hometown. Sigil expresses his suspicion about Theo's actions. While he doesn't dislike hero stories, he believes that Theo's actions are such that anyone would find them suspicious. Sigil expresses his concern about the king's treatment of Theo, which he deems outrageous. The king, however, defends his actions as reasonable. Sigil notes that it's been a while since he's seen the usually calm king act this way. The king acknowledges Sigil's suspicions but offers a different perspective. He talks about how humans often label things they don't understand as genius or talent. He questions where all the so-called geniuses have gone, and how many trials and opportunities one has to face to reach their position. The king uses the analogy of a horse to explain his point. No matter how great a horse's breed is, it's meaningless if it doesn't gallop. A horse needs land to run on and someone to ride it for it to truly exist as a horse. He applies this analogy to Theo, stating that no matter what kind of power the boy has, the fact that he rose so high is also part of his power. The king clarifies that he acknowledges the boy as a magician rather than a king. As their conversation concludes, Sigil admits that he feels he has grown older. They then decide to depart to pick up the boy. We're now shifting our focus to Theo, who seems to be in a bit of a predicament. Theo is feeling nauseous and on the verge of throwing up. He's questioning if it's because he's used an unconventional method. He's formed the fifth circle through the life vessel, but it's incredibly unstable. In a surprising turn of events, Theo impulsively consumed the heart of an elder lich. It hasn't even been half a month since he did so, but he's already advanced to the fifth circle. After a bout of nausea, Theo finally feels relief. But now, he's left wondering what to say to his professor. With the elder lich and the fifth circle involved, there are more than just one or two surprising things to share. Suddenly we see Sylvia as she enters a room where Theo is present. Theo, seemingly startled, shouts, "Sylvia!" causing a bit of a commotion. Sylvia asks if she can enter. Theo, caught off guard, asks why she's asking when she already entered. Sylvia apologizes, but Theo reminds her that at times like this, it's customary to apologize first, but never mind that. Theo seems a bit flustered and tries to explain himself but ends up telling Sylvia to just come in. "I bet he also wants to come in, that pussy." He then asks her why she's here. Theo seems confused until Sylvia tells him about her grandfather. Sylvia's grandfather is none other than the elder of the White Magic Tower, Grandpa Sigil. She informs Theo that her grandfather has sent her to bring him. Theo is left surprised by this sudden turn of events. At the White Magic Tower's dispatch barracks, Sigil, the elder of the White Magic Tower, is greeted by his grandchild who has brought along a guest, Theodore Miller. Sigil, a seasoned veteran, sizes up Theo, finding him simpler than expected. Theo, a disciple of Vince Heidel, is understandably nervous meeting such a prominent figure. Sigil reveals his role as the coroner dispatched for an unusual incident involving an elder lich. This revelation leaves Theo stunned. He's never heard of such a role before. Sigil, noticing Theo's discomfort, teases him about hiding something. Theo stammers out an apology, only to find out Sigil was merely joking. But the elder isn't done yet. He probes further into the incident with the elder lich. Theo confesses his desperate act of using a subspace pocket to destroy the lich's life vessel, a feat theoretically possible only for a sword master or a seventh circle magician. He admits it was a crazy act of desperation that he can't fully explain. Sigil is taken aback by this unconventional method but acknowledges its potential. He commends Theo for his quick thinking and good luck in defeating the elder lich using just a subspace pocket. As the conversation winds down, Sigil thanks Theo for his cooperation and apologizes for the interrogation. He then drops another bombshell: he was specifically ordered to meet Theo. The reason? Well, that's a story for another time. At the town's gate, the scene unfolds. Randolph, the ever-loyal companion, questions Theo's decision to leave without bidding anyone farewell. Theo, in his stoic manner, assures him that he will return, not wanting to let emotions cloud his resolve. Randolph scolds Theo for acting all high and mighty, pointing out that not everyone can go back to their hometown whenever they want. Randolph then lets Theo know they're about to leave the area and thanks him for the good times they've had together. In a lighthearted twist, Randolph offers Theo a half-price deal for future services, warning him against falling for scams elsewhere. Despite his teasing, Randolph's respect for Theo is evident as he bids him farewell, calling him a young master magician. Before Theo departs, Randolph advises him to look back once, a symbolic gesture of remembering one's roots. As Theo turns to leave, the townsfolk wave him off with heartfelt wishes for his safety and success. The scene ends with Theo's promise echoing in the air. "I'll be back." We observe a man meticulously marking a line on the floor. Sigil inquires of Theo's readiness, to which Theo confidently affirms, "Yes, I am prepared." Sylvia echoes his sentiment, stating, "Me too." Both of them assume their positions, preparing to transport Sigil's port back to the capital. Sigil declares, "Let's commence." He announces their initial return to the capital and then turns to one of the workers, instructing them to stay behind and attend to the remnants of the Elder Lich. The worker acknowledges, saying, "Yes, understood." Encouragingly, Sigil adds, "Work diligently." Before initiating the porting spell, Theo marvels at the speed at which he will be returning to the capital, realizing it's even faster than he anticipated. In no time, he will find himself back in the capital. Theo reflects that it's precisely what Elder Sigils have said. 3 important people are waiting for Theo in the capital for business. These notable figures include the king, the respected Blue Tower Master Blundell, and the powerful Red Tower Master Veronica. Theo is aware of the uncertainty ahead but can't help feeling a surge of excitement. Abruptly, a bright flash of light signals their arrival in the capital. The mass teleportation leaves Theo in a state of awe and disbelief. Sigil informs Theo that they have arrived, prompting him to snap out of his daze. He asks Theo why he looks so surprised and wonders if this is Theo's first time experiencing mass teleporting. Sigil clarifies that such reactions are typical because space magicians rarely travel, and when they do, it's usually kept under wraps. He points out that this method is distinct from regular teleportation and cautions Theo about the potential for nausea or a feeling of impending sickness. However, Sigil reassures Theo that these discomforts will eventually subside. Additionally, Sigil advises Theo to seek medical attention if he continues to feel out of sorts. He emphasizes the need to move promptly, cautioning that lingering in their current state may lead to an overlap. Both Theo and Sylvia affirm their understanding. As they traverse the hallway, their attention is drawn to a figure lurking in the shadows. To their surprise, it is none other than Vince Heidel, Theo's master. Vince cheerfully mentions that he arrived early to extend his greetings. Little did he anticipate encountering 2 familiar faces. Theo's face registers sudden distress, and he utters just one word. "Master." Vince playfully remarks that Theo seems to have transformed into a crybaby in record time. Theo attempts to convey the series of events, explaining how much has transpired. Vince places a comforting hand on Theo's shoulder, assuring him that they'll discuss it later. For now, he advises Theo to take a moment to collect himself. Theo agrees, affirming that he'll provide a full account in due time. Sigil and Sylvia are surprised at how quickly Theo changed his attitude. Vince is asked by Sigil if he thinks his arrival is just a coincidence. He makes the implication that Vince has a goal or intention when he says that it's improbable that he happened to find this place by accident. Vince chuckles awkwardly, acknowledging the predictability of Sigil's actions. With a bead of sweat forming on his forehead, Vince attempts to explain that he made an effort to persuade someone, but the Red Tower Master Victoria appears out of nowhere and throws herself forward, unexpectedly embracing Theo. The suddenness of the move leaves Theo speechless, and Sylvia is equally taken aback by the Red Tower Master's out of the blue gesture. Sigil expresses relief that Vince made an attempt to persuade Victoria. Vince responds, explaining that he tried, but once Veronica got wind of Theo's return, she entered her current state. She started having wet dreams about Theo. I mean, she could wait to see Theo again. Veronica
That's quite big.
Removes her coat in an effort to show her huge tits in an effort to cool down, while Theo rests on the ground. She checks on him, asking if he's alright, and greets everyone present, including Sigil. She acknowledges Sigil as the elder man in the group, suggesting they not trouble their already distressed Red Tower Master any further. She turns to Vince for confirmation, seeking his agreement. Sigil, with a bead of sweat forming on his forehead, inquires if Vince has indeed been enduring all this time. Veronica chuckles and affirms that he has. She points to Vince and asks if he truly said that his disciple was only at the 4th circle. Vince admits to saying so. With a mischievous grin, Veronica unleashes a fiery aura directed at Theo. He's taken aback by the intensity, feeling the heat radiating from her even though she remains stationary. Moving closer to Theo, Veronica observes that it's an unusually volatile circle they find themselves in. Veronica astutely observes that Theo must have experienced a significant level up. She also remarks that he likely went through some trials on his own. Blushing, Theo admits that after the incident, he attempted to stabilize the circle, but his efforts were in vain. Veronica offers Theo an analogy, comparing his situation to pouring too much water into a small bottle, causing it to overflow, the side effect of pushing one's limits. She decides it's time to take charge of Theo. Sigil, concerned, asks if Veronica might have made a mistake. She reassures him, explaining that she also has business with the king and will personally guide Theo to the Grand Castle. Sigil grants his approval, with the condition that nothing is broken in the process. Veronica takes hold of Theo, expressing satisfaction with how things have turned out. She notices his nervousness and questions the reason. Meanwhile, Vince looks at Sylvia, stating that he's unable to stop Veronica. He politely asks Sylvia for her forgiveness. Sylvia's just standing there, looking at the whole thing like she's watching a hentai, watching paint dry. In due time, at the entrance of the king's sitting room in the Melted Kingdom, Theo, Veronica, and Sylvia stand together. Veronica, while calling Theo a kid, commends him for his remarkable display of skill in overcoming the disparity in magical ability during the magic tournament. Theo, visibly uncomfortable, asserts that he's 19 years old, not a kid. Veronica teases him, remarking that he's a newcomer claiming not to be a child. She then points out Theo's popularity, noting his diligent study habits. This comment visibly unsettles Theo. Veronica continues, suggesting that at this rate, he'll end up being a virgin forever alone like those somber shut-ins from the White Tower. Veronica can't help but think that Theo lacks a sense of composure. She asserts that they have now arrived at their destination. Theo points out that they didn't give any prior notice of their arrival, so there might not be anyone available to greet them. Veronica acknowledges the absence of a gatekeeper, speculating that they must be occupied elsewhere. Theo contemplates the challenge of entering and decides to enlist assistance from the nearby lounge. However, Veronica, wearing a sinister expression, suggests an alternative approach. Veronica readies herself to deliver a powerful kick to the door. She instructs Theo to pay close attention, takes a deep breath, and unleashes a forceful shockwave, obliterating the door with remarkable strength. In the room,
"Surprise, motherfucker!"
startled Blundell exclaims at the audacity of the act, while the king remains chillin' on his couch. Once the dust settles, Veronica casually remarks, "See? Easy." She exudes an air of both coolness and intensity. Blundell, seated beside the king, contemplates whether he should have taken action against Veronica in that moment, noting that the king doesn't even react to the dramatic entrance, and simply asks if it's Veronica. Blundell ponders why Veronica didn't approach the king in a similar manner, considering she had purposely called for Sigil at the Red Tower. Veronica explains that since it had been a while since her last visit, she wanted to observe the proper protocols and Sigil's formality. In the midst of their conversation, both Theo and Sylvia suddenly kneel before the king, a realization dawning on them that they are in the presence of the most influential person they've ever encountered. Veronica, momentarily caught off guard, recalls that she forgot that the king is the most important person in this kingdom. The king, reclining on the couch, warmly acknowledges their presence and invites Theo and Sylvia to relax and come closer. He assures them that there's no need for formality in this meeting. He then proceeds to express his gratitude and extend congratulations to both Sylvia and Theo. As fellow magicians, they are now regarded not as king and subjects, but as equals. The king emphasizes the gravity of their achievement in subduing an elder lynch, emphasizing that it could have led to a catastrophic outcome. On behalf of all the citizens of Melter, he extends heartfelt thanks to both Sylvia and Theo for their exemplary service. Theo graciously acknowledges the king's thanks, but he's quick to point out that it wasn't just him and Sylvia who managed to suppress the elder lich. It was a collective effort that included the citizens of Barony and the wandering wolf mercenaries who fought alongside them. He humbly emphasizes that it wasn't solely his achievement. The king commends Theo for his humility, recognizing that the credit he's giving now extends to both Theo and Sylvia, symbolizing the collective endeavor that averted a catastrophic event. He then motions for Blundell to proceed with reading the document. Blundell responds with a respectful, "Yes, Your Majesty," and begins to read the document aloud. The document announces that Theodore Miller and Sylvia Andronicus's ranks will be elevated from basic to average, along with corresponding increases in pay and rewards for third-level danger tasks. Additionally, the kingdom will provide Vince Heidel with a replacement space pocket, which was damaged during the mission, free of charge. The king then addresses Theo directly. He explains that the reward for his accomplishments is too big to give through normal ways, so he made a decision to grant Theo one thing: it can be whatever he wants. Theo contemplates the gravity of the offer, realizing he has the opportunity to request something of great value. He briefly considers the possibility of obtaining natural-level artifacts but dismisses the idea, deeming the risks too significant. In a flashback, he recalls a conversation with Gluttony, who commented on the quality of the food Theo provided, highlighting that Theo only fed him common books. This memory influences Theo's decision-making process. Theo's mind races in the present moment, contemplating the profound effects that occurred when Gluttony consumed a book rather than an artifact. He reflects on how the power was unleashed after consuming the grimoire, and a thought occurs to him. Perhaps this could be an opportunity to stabilize the fifth circle. Summoning his courage, Theo addresses His Majesty the King, expressing his request. He states that he wants a permission to enter Veronica's pussy. He would like a permission to select a book from the unranked library. Veronica and Theo arrived at the library in search of a book. Veronica couldn't help but vent about Kurt, the troublesome individual who dared to lecture her about library rules and treated her like a child. She insisted that she didn't read often anyway, except the typical midnight hentai reading. Theo, trying to calm Veronica down, asked if she was still upset. Veronica continued her rant all the way to the library, expressing her intent to give Kurt a piece of her mind the next time they crossed paths. Upon arriving at the Magic Records library, Theo was puzzled by the apparently ordinary glass door, which Veronica corrected as being made of advantium alloy. She boldly attempted to force it open, but to no avail. Theo was left in awe as the door remained unscathed. Veronica admitted it was a tough task for bare hands and vowed to conquer it next time. Theo couldn't help but comment on her determination, likening her words to something a villain might say. Veronica clarified that this is a special code that was needed to open the door, held only by the king and tower master. Inside the library, they meticulously sifted through books, seeking the best one. Theo couldn't help but ask about Veronica's impressive strength and fiery mana she is emanating. She explained that she is a quarter red dragon, granting her enhanced abilities. Theo points out that it explains the heat he feels right now. Veronica apologized for her uncontrollable outbursts of power, and Theo reassured her, comparing her to an early summer. Veronica playfully called him out for using an old-fashioned pickup line. They continued their search, with Theo struggling to choose a single book from the vast selection of high-quality manhwa. Veronica explained the rarity and value of the books in the library, sympathizing with Theo's predicament. He pondered whether mastering these treasures was exclusive to women. Additionally, he grappled with the challenge of finding a book that met his specific requirements, feeling a sense of frustration in his search. Theo found himself torn between the opportunity to learn a powerful magic and the considerable effort it would require. He mused about the alternative of simply taking a book, rather than going through the complex process of mastering it through 7 circles. Just as he was deep in thought, Veronica caught his attention, presenting a book called Song of Battle. She explained that it was highly popular among Red Tower wizards and that it was her first time seeing the original. According to her, mastering it would unlock incredible strength and power for the user. Theo considered the potential of this magic to unleash hidden potential within the user. He decided to appraise the book, which revealed it to be the Song of the Battle. It described a secret art created by descendants of a warrior family who couldn't master aura. The technique reinforced the body using magic mana, making it highly efficient but with the drawback of making users reluctant to utilize it. The book was deemed a valuable treasure, with specific acquisition conditions and potential enhancements to physical ability upon ingestion. Additionally, ingesting it could pass down some of the author's abilities based on suitability. Theo was intrigued and wondered why more magicians, regardless of their tower affiliation, weren't eager to learn it. He marveled at its potential superiority over other auxiliary magics and questioned why he hadn't encountered anyone who possessed this knowledge. Veronica offered a simple explanation. The Song of the Battle was not very practical in terms of efficiency. It required a significant amount of concentration, and in a real combat scenario, it could consume a substantial portion of a magician's resources. Veronica emphasized that it was particularly challenging for those not accustomed to the rigors of war. Despite its drawbacks, Veronica acknowledged that using the magic to strengthen one's body with 4 circles was a viable option. However, she warned against using the remaining circles for other magic, as it could potentially have adverse effects. Theo weighed the pros and cons, contemplating whether to take on the challenge of mastering this powerful but demanding magic. Gluttony abruptly woke up, urging Theo to make a decision about the book. Theo was surprised by Gluttony's sudden awakening and questioned how he could be so sure. Gluttony dismissed Theo's concern, explaining that he was familiar with Theo's habits, especially when it came to hunger. Theo speculated that the book might unlock his 3rd function, though he doubted Gluttony would reveal what that function entailed. Gluttony assured him that he wouldn't regret his choice. Theo pondered Gluttony's advice, realizing that it wasn't given lightly. He turned to Victoria for clarification, and she confirmed that the magic had a strong concentration, but there were some unconventional aspects to it. Veronica chimed in, expressing that the unconventional nature of the magic was what made it romantic. Theo looked at her in astonishment. Later, Theo and Vince sat by a fireplace, enjoying coffee. Coffee at night? Sounds like my routine. Vince commented on how the seemingly vacation-like mission had turned into such a significant event. Theo agreed, describing it as complete pandemonium. Vince praised Theo for his hard work, and Theo thanked him. The conversation shifted, and Vince mentioned that he never expected their master to take a liking to Theo. Theo seemed surprised, and Vince explained that their master paid close attention to details and mannerisms, which indicated her affection. Vince revealed that their master was selective about who she treated warmly. It took him 2 years before she addressed him by name. He then asked Theo if he was serious about what he had said during dinner. Theo confirmed that he was, recalling a fight with an elder lich that made him realize he couldn't rely on luck forever. He expressed a strong desire to become stronger and enter the Red Tower. Vince regarded Theo with a serious expression and agreed to expedite the process. Theo smiled, grateful for Vince's support and ready to take on the challenge. Theo expressed his gratitude to Vince for understanding his determination. Just then, Gluttony woke up, demanding his meal and mentioning he had been waiting for a while. Theo tried to explain that he was in the middle of something, but Gluttony insisted on getting food. Vince, with a smile, told Theo not to worry about him and to let Gluttony eat first. Theo quickly retrieved a book from his storage and handed it to Gluttony, apologizing for the delay. Gluttony eagerly devoured the book, expressing his satisfaction. To Theo's surprise, Gluttony mentioned that the book was ready for synchronization. Confused, Theo asked for clarification, but before he could get an answer, black smoke enveloped Gluttony, pulling Theo into it. A notification appeared, indicating that the user's synchro conditions were deemed highly suitable. It then mentioned that Lee Yong-sung, the author of the Song of the Battle, requested a conversation with the user. A spiritual connection was established for their discussion. In a tranquil forest, a man sat in a lotus position, surrounded by nature. A notification informed that the synchronization process was beginning. The man, with long black hair, sensed the presence of a guest and turned to acknowledge them. In the scenic mountains, a man with a black beard and hair stood, holding a leaf. He said, "That is a good wind, right?" Theo points out that this situation is just like that with Alfred. Theo explained that he had entered someone else's body, confirming that the owner of this body was undoubtedly the magician Lee Yoon-sung, who wrote the Song of Battle. However, he was curious about the person he was currently conversing with. Lee responded, stating that Theo was the one who had entered his body. This revelation surprised Theo, who hadn't expected Lee to sense his presence within his own body. Lee went on to explain that he hailed from the head family of Sun Mui, a group responsible for protecting the White Cloud Mountains. In his previous life in the Western lands, he was born into a renowned knight family. Theo inquired if Lee was originally from the East, to which Lee confirmed. He noted that his heritage didn't seem to have spread even after his passing. Theo then shared a brief history of the continents, explaining that Easterners focused on aura rather than traditional magic, leading to the formation of an independent faction of sorcerers in the East. Theo couldn't fathom how an Easterner like Lee ended up in Melter, creating such a unique form of magic like the Song of Battle. Lee smiled, holding onto the leaf, and suggested that Theo listen to his life story. Lee recounted his upbringing in a distinguished family, but his life took a sharp turn when it was discovered he lacked the innate ability to use aura. Disowned by his family, he was banished to a cottage in the mountains at a young age. Determined to change his fate, Lee ventured to the magic kingdom of the West at 16, facing numerous near-death experiences in pursuit of mastering the impure magic that was scorned in the East. Upon arriving in Melter, Lee had a stroke of luck and found a kind master who guided him in the magic tower. He successfully developed a form of magic that utilized the principles of symbiosis, drawing from his early teachings in his family. This culmination of his efforts resulted in the creation of the Song of Battle, a feat he accomplished after 2 decades of dedication. Theo couldn't help but express his admiration for Lee's incredible journey and the creation of the Song of Battle. However, Lee humbly admitted that the magic was originally incomplete. To alleviate the guilt he felt for using his family's teachings, he had added unnecessary details. What he was about to teach Theo was the original and complete Song of Battle, specifically the dance of the Taoist. Lee explained that the martial arts of the Sun Mui were akin to graceful dance moves. He demonstrated the technique for Theo, emphasizing that he had incorporated his family's aura method into the Song of Battle to obtain abilities that had been denied to him. Lee meticulously went through all the steps of the technique. Theo marveled at the technique's destructive power, noting that it was so potent that even a skilled magician might not notice it. Lee reflected on how he hadn't immediately returned to his family to prove himself. He wanted to show them the person they had cast aside, to demonstrate that he wasn't without worth. Even though he had surpassed every martial artist in his family, his father could only see his magic as a mere sorcery. Eventually, Lee did return to the Melter Kingdom, having forged his own path and gained recognition for his accomplishments. The talk between Theo and Lee showed how strong and determined people can be, even when things are tough. It's a really good example of never giving up and being able to do well even when things are hard. As Lee continued his story, he revealed that not much time had passed before he reached the end of his life. He acknowledged that it was likely the price he paid for pushing his body to its limits in order to create magic. Despite leaving no tangible legacy behind, Lee had no regrets. He expressed gratitude to Theo for being the one to carry on his method, seeing him as a fitting successor. Theo looked at Lee, clearly puzzled by his words. Suddenly, the connection between them was abruptly severed. Lee's last words were a hope that his teachings would prove valuable in Theo's life. A notification appeared, stating that the synchronization with entity Lee Yoon-sung was complete, retaining 92.8% of the acquired experience. The magic Song of Battle had fully recovered its efficiency, and the stability between entity Lee Yoon-sung and Theodore Miller was notably high. As a result of Lee's activity, a portion of his skills and martial arts had been transferred to Theo, greatly enhancing his physical abilities. However, this newfound strength came at the cost of requiring a long period of sleep. After a 30-hour slumber, Theo woke up feeling physically exhausted. When he inquired about his whereabouts, Vince appeared and asked how Theo was feeling. Theo questioned how long he had been asleep, learning that he had slept for a full 30 hours after consuming the Song of Battle. Vince admitted to being surprised by Theo's sudden collapse, as he couldn't anticipate what Theo might experience during the synchronization. He suggested Theo take a look in the mirror first. Standing up and examining his reflection, Theo was taken aback by the dramatic change in his body. Overwhelmed, Theo realized that the transformation extended beyond his outward appearance. His physical strength, stamina, and his dick grow, even his senses had all noticeably improved. He marveled at the fact that he now possessed abilities equivalent to the most accomplished upper knights. Theo couldn't help but reflect on how he had embraced this newfound power, and acknowledged that it surpassed anything he could have imagined. Theo marveled at how he had managed to overcome one of the biggest weaknesses of magicians, physical ability, in such a short amount of time. Feeling emboldened, he approached Vince with a request, addressing Vince respectfully as, "Master, let's fuck." This is the end of the story of how Theo became a femboy. -1 like and I post a new episode. Okay, I'm just joking. Theo stated that there was only one thing left for him to accomplish. Vince appeared unsure of what Theo was referring to. Theo asked how can he meet Miss Veronica. Meanwhile, in a different building elsewhere, a man approached the Red Tower Master with an urgent report. The man informed the Tower Master that a pair of ogres had appeared at the Vermont Viscounty territory, causing injuries to many people. The territory's soldiers had managed to drive them away, but the situation was dire enough to warrant the dispatch of a war mage. Veronica, in her office, gave orders to send David, a superior, and requested additional support from secondary knights, along with 3 or 4 guards for added security. The man in red clothes assured her that he would carry out her orders promptly. However, as he observed Veronica's stern expression, he witnessed her sudden eruption of irritation. She expressed frustration at the recent string of mundane matters and voiced her annoyance at having to address territorial issues that should have been handled independently. Veronica even contemplated sending royal investigators to scrutinize the responsible party. Seated in her chair, Veronica spreads her legs and starts to masturbate. Veronica reflected on how she had recently found someone intriguing, and wondered aloud if 10 days was too long to wait for him to come.
Yeah, boy.
The man in red clothes listened to her words with a mix of resignation and understanding. As Veronica's frustration continued to simmer, the man in red clothes hesitated before speaking up again. He assured her that it was nothing significant, but couldn't help but note how easily she became upset over even minor matters. He kept his inner thoughts to himself, mindful of Veronica's temper. Veronica's curiosity was piqued when she received word of an audience request. She couldn't recall making any prior arrangements, but when the man in the red clothes mentioned Theodore Miller, a recently arrived average-level magician, her interest was immediately piqued. With a surprised expression, Veronica swiftly rose from her office chair, exclaiming that she had been waiting for him. She instructed the man in the red clothes to send Theodore in. However, in a sudden turn of events, Veronica changed her mind. She determined it would be faster to go to Theodore herself. She instructed the man to call an elder and have them meet Theodore, leaving the rest of the work to the elder. The man in the red clothes expressed his understanding and compliance. As Veronica left the office, she felt a sense of anticipation and eagerness. She couldn't help but think about the opportune timing of Theodore's arrival, rescuing her from the boring paperwork. Veronica was determined to make a lasting impression on him. Veronica enters the training room with a smile, grateful for the timely interruption from her monotonous paperwork. Theo, standing in the room, addresses Veronica with an apologetic tone. He explains that he intended to arrive earlier, but ran into a minor issue along the way. Veronica looks at Theo with a horny expression. She can't stop thinking, have it got bigger and thicker? She can't stop fantasizing about the size. Will she be able to handle such a big task? It's basically oozing. I mean, his magic power is oozing from his body that got bigger and stronger. What else would it be? Veronica is pondering whether humans can change so much in just 10 days. She seems to be attracted to Theo. Theo thanks her for her time, but Veronica thinks she was getting bored anyway. Veronica tells Theo that she was the one who invited him, and there is no need for thanks. She asks if he came because of what they talked about last time, to which Theo confirms. Veronica says that she is always ready for Theo. She tells Theo not to become disgusting like the old man Blunder, as that's physiologically pushing it too far. Theo is confused about Veronica's remarks, but he says, "Understood." Veronica gets her mind back on track and suggests they move to a more suitable place. Theo asks where they are going, and Veronica takes off her jacket and tells Theo to follow her. She hints that it's probably a place Theo knows well. Is it probably a bedroom?